everyone. It's good to be back. So last year was my first, and you voted me in again, so that's great. I'm really looking forward to kind of giving you this update. 10 essential Wi-Fi metrics from mobile devices, which I find valuable and regularly use in everything that I do. I'll also touch on how to get them from your device, and how to travel back in time and fix the problem that someone had, but they didn't know how to reproduce when you weren't there. So, no, of course not. That's nonsense. We won't be doing that. So, why do we need to rely on our mobile devices? Well, it's great doing packet analysis, all that's really good, but you can't always be there doing that. You have to have it set up. Roaming is difficult. If there's no expert present on site and you're relying on some IT team, they can't do it necessarily. If you've got intermittent problems that you can't repeat and troubleshoot after the event, that's difficult, and you cannot often get to the logic that exists in the upper layers above the Wi-Fi stack that the device is doing to make its internal decisions. So very quickly, I know a lot of you will know this, but just for completeness, how do we get to our metrics? Okay, so an Android device will show you metrics. Okay, you can get the RSSI, frequency, authentication, standards, all those good things. That's just there when you take your device out of the box. Most of you will know that you can go and tap on build number 5 times, go to develop options, turn on the verbose logging, and all of a sudden the normal screen gives you a whole scan load of stuff out there with some numbers in it. The useful things are MAC addresses, frequencies, there's some scores. What do they really mean? Not sure. They always seem to be about 60, in my opinion. And then you can use apps. And not too long ago, in one of the recent Android releases, look, you can get the IEs from the beacon frame. Great. And so Aruba Utilities and Analyty, 2 great apps if you want to dig in and see what is absolutely going on over the air. But these are giving you a combination of metrics that are coming from the APIs, some things that are coming from from packets, IEs and so on, and some of their own internal sort of trending and so on. Whoops, what's happened there? What about Apple devices? Do we get metrics from Apple devices? Sure we do, of course. Out the box, not very much. But we all know now you can get a profile and you could unlock the diagnostics, right? And so you can go to that profile. You need to be an Apple developer. Hashtag Wi-Fi Dan Jones got a Siri profile because you need to renew it every 3 days. Makes it easy. That's pretty cool. And by using apps, you can expose scan data on top of that. Okay, great. But it's kind of been always a bit difficult. So as you know from last year, most of you, I developed an oversight to help you get a whole bunch of the extra metrics that you can't really get off the screen by plugging it into a Mac. And you can get the scan data, you can get all the trending, additional networks, handovers, roaming, so on. As usual with WLPC, there's a promo if you want to get it, and all of those who need to renew this year, use it. It's available till Sunday. But now, we can also do it on the device. So everything that was there on the desktop, with just the device, we're able to get at these long-term trends. There's information that the device has that it will spit out, and I'll tell you how, that tells you a little bit more about the configuration and the environment that you were in at that moment in time when you asked for it. So this is pretty cool. Now, that's not me developing this. I'm just displaying it nicely. You can get to that, and I'll tell you how. So actually, you can look back in time because on the device, you can capture a log. You can press the 3 buttons, wait a couple of minutes. If you go to the right menu and search for a syslog, you can get it, you can share it, and then we've ported an oversight onto the device. So if you share it directly with the application, it will load in, and it'll show you everything back a period of time. Now, that period of time used to be 7 days. It got less. It got less. It got less. Now, it seems to be fairly reliably the last few hours. So if somebody calls you up and says, I had a problem, and you need to know the metrics from the device, you can do it on an Apple device. you can look back in time. I haven't done it for Android, should I? Yes. Thank you. Okay. So that is it. That's a little bit about how to get there. Now, if anyone would like to know how to get at these logs yourselves, you can open that file, that sysdiagnose. You can get at all of the internal files inside. Some of the metrics I'm just displaying from the files, so you can see them yourself. You can download an oversight on the App Store. It's available right now if you go and have a look on your Android device, and it's free up to a point, so you'll be able to see all that. You can use the 3 buttons. It's a bit clunky, but get used to it. And you can have a look at what's been going on in this room over the last few hours. So do it. So metrics that I use regularly, I'm starting with the easy ones. Now, of course, there's a whole ton of metrics I could use. This is a combination. This is my personal selection of what's kind of easy to get at, makes sense, has a purpose to me at least, and hopefully sharing this with you will give you that as well. So RSSI, what does it mean to us? We can all see RSSI quite easily. Yeah, it's like, what's the coverage like? Cool. What does it mean to the device? What AP should I select, right? I'm going to do some kind of ranking, aren't I? But when I'm choosing what to select, when to consider roaming, hit neg 70 dBm, yeah, time to look for another AP, roaming. So RSSI is important. If you look at it, you can tell your coverage. If you know what the device is doing with it, that is going to be somewhat helpful in understanding what's going to happen. Oh, I'm on a cell edge, it's going to start roaming. You can get to the RSSI by doing the extra profile, or you can do it looking back in time, or on the desktop in real time, and see actually now trending information as well. You can use the Analytics app and see trending information and roams and handovers equally. It's pretty good. So both Android, iOS, look at RSSI, use it, understand what the device is doing with it. SNR, I see that in iOS. It's useful to me because a client will say, I got neg 65 and it's not working. And I'll walk in with an oversight and I'll go, oh, yeah, but look, you've got 11 dB SNR. It's not working because that's why. Oh, well, we're a retail environment and we don't manage all of our tenants' Wi-Fi. Oh, well, there you go. It'll make sense. So it's quite easy to tell your clients, your customers, that's why something's not working even though the RSSI is good. So I don't see SNR too easily on Android devices, but I do see MCS. MCS is great. It's just an understanding of what the quality of the link is. It's a combination of the metrics. It's because the SNR was low, the device backed off, it chose a different modulation and coding and whatever. The MCS is telling you where it's at. It's just another way, and if you're using an Android device, that would be my recommendation. Use something like the Analytics app, get the MCS. You can show anybody and say, look, this is why it's not working very well. Or it's why it's slow, or why it's fast, why it is good. Data rate, I like data rate because it's also, if you're not going to use another app or something like that, well, it tells you if the speed is good, but I think it was Wes that mentioned it yesterday. He talked about throughput. Okay, data rate is not throughput, but they're related. Throughput is becoming the metric of choice in some of these platforms about which AP should be selected. What's the estimated throughput? Estimated throughput? So we're estimating throughput now. We'll come back to that in a minute. And security. We shouldn't go without saying security. Should be checking security on the device. Is the security right? Can a device support it? There's Apple's approach to security. You know, an EAP network is the highest priority, then WPA3, and then so on and so on and so on. So by knowing that ranking, by knowing your security or the security of the device you're looking at and you're examining, you can tell whether or not you will actually be able to get a connection or whether it should be a prioritized network. Now let's just break for a minute. So this is extracted from an Android log. Android use a combination of scorers. Apple and Android use scorers. Android have a few different scorers. Seems to be some kind of playing around. Throughput scorer, bubble fun scorer, V2 compatibility scorer. I don't know what they do. I see it in the logs. But the scorer that seems to be most used is throughput. Wes mentioned throughput. I need to check if we're talking about the same thing. But in there, RSSI, throughput, security, you're awarding a score based on those metrics. They're completely outweighed if you're on a metered network. They don't matter anymore. Or if it's not trusted, or OEM paid net award network, I don't know what. But, when you are talking apples for apples and everything's unmetered and everything's saved and everything's been connected to before, it's RSSI, it's throughput, it's security that's making those decisions. Congestion. Okay, we all have problems with congestion in WLPC networking here, pretty bad. Analyty, again, on Android, tell you how busy a channel is, how many networks are on it. You get an indication of airtime. You can use both Analyty and Aruba Utilities to see the BSS load if it's being reported. Health warning, BSS load doesn't tend to always update so quickly. It's hit or miss. But on iOS, how do you get that? Well, it's in the logs, and Oversight will tell you how busy a network is with OBSS, with interference, with whatever it is. So that's that little red box there telling you how busy that is. So that's pretty important. Good to know if something is congested. You look at the Android logs again, a Wi-Fi throughput predictor log. How many special streams? Yeah, good, whatever. Oh, utilization, BSS load, airtime calculation. Right, so they're all, it's very important that you understand that. If you want to go into the logs and just search for utilization or airtime, you'll start to filter on these. Anybody who wants to know how to get into an Android log, it's ADB. If you don't know what that means, come and see me afterwards. Happily to explain that to you. So here's one which is not a metric that's built. It's a test, but I like to put it in here. Responsiveness. We all have that question. Was it the Wi-Fi? Was it the network? Responsiveness test is a buffer bloat test. It's meant to measure how responsive a network is. Round trips per minute. It's constantly testing and testing. Works out how responsive the network is. On Apple devices, when you've put in the profile, the Wi-Fi profile, you can go and hit the responsiveness test. That was me yesterday in here. 14. Oh, wrong way, sorry. 14 low. The connection in some apps or services may be unreliable. Are we experiencing that today? Yeah. It's in speedtest.net, UCLA, as well. So you get the normal throughput charts, but below that you can see a responsiveness piece there. That gives you the indication of how good this network is in terms of how it can perform right through the network, not just the Wi-Fi. Scans. Well, we all scan. Of course we do. Use tools to scan. We try and use the device to scan. Android scans are good. A lot of people rely on a phone to scan when they can't get hold of something else. How does the spectrum look? Of course, internally, a scan it's a vital thing. It's done periodically for the device to know what to move to, roaming when you're connecting. You can use a slightly better tool to get a better scan, extra information, nicely ordered by whatever you want it to be, not so cluttered. And then, in the free version of Oversight Mobile, if you click the 3 buttons, open it, you will see exactly the scan in this room. You can hit on any one of those, filter through, and you can see the whole scan in here as the device did it. So that's available to you. Selection decisions. I wrote a blog on it end of last year. So recently made an update to kind of look, as 6 gigahertz came out, into how selection decisions were being made. We know that captive networks and bandwidth and so on are all features, but we're still feeling our way around this. So I wrote a parser for the log to kind of pick out exactly what stages were being gone through. And I found a whole ton of interesting things. Now, there's a few blogs out there that says, okay, well, the new iPad won't connect to a standalone 6 gigahertz network. Well, I went one step further and I was like, oh, well, look what it does. It finds, even if it finds the RNR for a 6 gigahertz network, it then says, oh, that 6 gigahertz network is really high power, it's really a high priority, that's great. And then somewhere down the log it says, I'm excluding it just in case it's standalone and there's no 5 gigahertz counterpart for it. So I'll exclude it, go on to the next step of the state machine, try and find a network. If I find something else, great. And if not, I can come back to this, presuming it's saved. So interesting things there. If you use the tool, you can just switch Wi-Fi off and on in any network and just see why your device landed on the AP it landed on. What did it go through? And finally, hopefully we can win some time back here. Finally, what I really like is the roam scans. So what did the scan look like when you were trying to roam? Did you have enough overlap? So in the tool, you can understand when it's roaming. You can see the events, and it says things like, oh, I'm roaming due to low RSSI. And then you'll get, as you can see there, abandoned. And when you look at it, you say, oh, look at the scans, minus 82, minus 86, minus 88. I abandoned because there was nothing good to go to. And actually, it says in the next log, if I read it carefully, network found but filtered out by roam score logic. Great. Now we know we don't have enough overlap in this network. All right, that's it. So I'm finishing a little bit early, but download it on the app. I'd love to do an experiment. If you can, Apple users, just download it from the App Store, do some tests, feedback to me, let me know what you think. Great.